They say an alpha's heart breaks only once, the day he loses his true mate. But Theron Silvercrest, High Alpha of the Northern Reaches, was about to discover that fate had one more devastation waiting for him. Or perhaps one more miracle. On a winter morning that tasted of ash and desperation, in a marketplace reeking of poverty and forgotten dreams, a pair of eyes would change everything. Eyes the color of midnight violets. Eyes that shouldn't exist. Eyes that belong to a ghost. This is the story of a king who thought he'd buried his heart 7 winters ago. This is the story of a child who survived what should have killed her. This is the story of a betrayal so deep, it poisoned an entire bloodline. And this is the story of how love, broken, battered, but undefeated, can rebuild what hatred tried to destroy. Welcome to the Northern Reaches. Welcome to a tale of shadows and second chances. Welcome to the Sovereign's Lost Star. Chapter 1. Eyes Like Violets. Theron Silvercrest had witnessed death in 1,000 forms. He'd led battalions through the blood wars. He'd executed traitors with his own claws. He'd held dying wolves in his arms and felt their last breath against his skin. Violence was as familiar to him as breathing, as natural as the shift that lived beneath his skin. But nothing had ever made the High Alpha's hands tremble like the child did. She crouched beside a broken fountain in the merchant's quarter, so impossibly small she might have been mistaken for a pile of rags if not for the eyes. Those eyes. Deep violet, the exact shade of mountain lupins at twilight. The exact shade of eyes that had closed forever 7 years ago in a pool of blood and broken promises. Theron had been conducting a routine security sweep, something he rarely did personally, but restlessness had driven him from the palace that morning. His wolf had been clawing at his insides for weeks, agitated by something he couldn't name. Now he knew why. The scent hit him first. Beneath layers of filth, beneath the sharp tang of fear and the sour smell of starvation, there was something that made his wolf surge forward with a violence that nearly forced the shift right there in the crowded square.
Mate. No.
Impossible. His mate was dead. Celeste had died 7 years ago, torn apart by rogues during what should have been a simple diplomatic journey. His beta, Jasper, had brought back her bloodied cloak and her wedding ring. They'd held a funeral. Theron had howled his grief until his throat bled. His mate was dead. And yet this child, Your Majesty. Jasper touched his shoulder, concerned threading through his voice. The merchants are waiting for. Cancel it. Theron's voice came out rough, barely human. He was already moving toward the fountain, toward those impossible eyes that tracked his approach with the wariness of a creature that had learned the hard way that nothing good came from attention. The crowd parted instinctively, heads bowing, throats baring in automatic submission to their High Alpha. But Theron barely noticed. His entire world had narrowed to the tiny figure huddled against crumbling stone. She couldn't be more than 6 years old. Skeletal.
Bruised.
Wearing something that might have once been a dress, but was now just threads and dirt held together by hope. Her hair, matted and filthy, was the color of spun copper where the sun hit it. Celeste's hair. Theron crouched slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. The child's eyes widened, but she didn't run. Couldn't run, he realized with a sick jolt. Her ankle was swollen, possibly broken, and old scars crisscrossed her exposed skin like a road map of suffering. What's your name? His voice came out softer than he'd intended, almost gentle, a tone he hadn't used since Celeste died. The child flinched as if he'd struck her. Her fingers tightened around a piece of moldy bread that looked like it had been retrieved from a gutter. It's all right. He kept his hands visible, non-threatening. I won't hurt you. I promise. For a long moment, she just stared at him, studying him with an intensity that was unnerving in someone so young. Then, in a voice like cracked glass, she whispered, Astrid. The name hit him like a physical blow. Astrid. Celeste had wanted to name their daughter Astrid if they ever had one. They talked about it during lazy mornings in bed, planning a future that had been ripped away before it could begin. Astrid, he repeated, and his wolf keeled. That's a beautiful name. When did you last eat? Her eyes dropped to the bread in her hands. A head shake so slight he almost missed it. When did you last have clean water? Another shake. Where are your parents? This time, she looked up at him with those devastating violet eyes and said simply, dead. The word hung in the air between them, final and terrible. Theron's chest tightened. How long have you been alone? Always. The single word carried a weight no child should have to bear. I've always been alone. That couldn't be true. She was 6, maybe 7 at most. Someone had cared for her once, had given her that name, had. His wolf snarled, pushing forward with such force that Theron had to close his eyes and breathe through the urge to shift. When he opened them again, Astrid was watching him with something that might have been recognition. You have a wolf, she said softly. I can smell it. I'm angry. Most humans couldn't detect a wolf unless the shifter was actively using their power. Most wolves couldn't sense it clearly unless they were part of the same pack. He's not angry at you, Theron managed. He's angry at whoever hurt you. Everyone hurts me. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. That's just what people do. Something inside Theron cracked. He stood abruptly, his decision made before conscious thought could catch up. Jasper, bring the car. Your Majesty? His beta's voice carried a warning note that Theron ignored. Do I look like I'm joking? Bring the car. Now. She's a street child. The council will. The council, Theron said with deadly calm, can challenge me for leadership if they have concerns. Otherwise, they'll accept my decision. He turned back to Astrid and extended his hand. Palm up. Steady despite the tremor running through his entire body. Come with me, Astrid. Where I'm taking you, no one will hurt you again. I give you my word as High Alpha. She stared at his hand like it might transform into something dangerous, which, to be fair, it could. But her eyes, those heartbreaking violet eyes, held something besides fear. Hope. Desperate, painful, fragile hope. Slowly, with the caution of someone who'd been betrayed by kindness before, she placed her tiny, filthy hand in his. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up Theron's arm. His wolf settled for the first time in 7 years. The restlessness that had plagued him for months suddenly made sense. This child. He lifted her carefully, shocked by how little she weighed. She should have been heavier. A child her age should have had muscle, fat, substance. Instead, she was nothing but fragile bones and paper-thin skin. She buried her face against his neck immediately, drawn to his scent the way a pup would be drawn to its parent. And didn't that raise about 1,000 questions he wasn't ready to answer? Is she? Jasper trailed off as he got close enough to really see her, to catch her scent beneath the grime. I don't know, Theron said quietly, but I'm going to find out. The palace staff didn't know what to do with them. Theron carried Astrid through the main entrance, protocol be damned, while servants scattered like startled birds and courtiers stared with barely concealed shock. The High Alpha, who hadn't touched another living soul with gentleness since his mate's death, was cradling a filthy street child like she was made of spun glass. Draw a bath, he ordered the nearest servant, a young woman named Helena, who was gaping at him. Warm, not hot. And find clothing that will fit. Something soft. Your Majesty, perhaps the healers should examine her first? The bath first. He didn't know how he knew that was important, but he was certain. She needs to feel clean. Everything else comes after. Helena wisely didn't argue with an alpha whose eyes had started glowing with his wolf's presence. Astrid hadn't moved since climbing into the car, hadn't looked up since pressing her face against his throat. Her breathing was shallow and rapid against his skin, the only proof she was still conscious. The guest wing had been prepared with impressive speed. Steam rose from the bathing room beyond, and someone had already laid out towels and what looked like a child's nightgown. I'll take her from here, Your Majesty, Helena offered gently.
No.
The word came out as a growl. Theron caught himself, forced his wolf back. She's frightened. I'll stay. Helena's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline, but she was smart enough not to comment. As you wish, your majesty. When they were alone, Theron set Astrid down carefully in the bathroom. She immediately tried to make herself smaller, pressing into the corner beside the ornate toilet. Just water, he said softly, testing the temperature. Perfect. It'll make you feel better. I promise. I'll get the floor wet, she whispered. I'll be punished for making a mess. His hands clenched on the edge of the tub. No one punishes anyone for taking a bath in my home. And you couldn't make a mess if you tried. She didn't look convinced, but she also didn't run when he added oils to the water that smelled like lavender and vanilla. Can you undress yourself? A nod. I'll turn around. I won't look unless you need help. He suited action to words, giving her privacy. Behind him, he heard the whisper of fabric, then a sharp intake of breath that made him turn despite his promise. Astrid stood in the center of the bathroom, naked and exposed and destroyed. Burns. Lash marks. Cigarette scars dotting her back like obscene constellations. The distinctive shape of a handprint burned into her shoulder. Evidence of breaks that had healed wrong. Malnutrition, so severe her ribs cast shadows in the soft light.
Who did this?
His voice dropped to something subhuman, barely recognizable. Who hurt you? She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking. When she spoke, her voice was tiny. Everyone.
Breathe.
He had to breathe or he'd shift right here and destroy half the palace in his rage. Get in the water, sweetheart. Let's get you clean, and then we'll talk. She obeyed with the speed of someone used to following orders instantly or facing consequences. The bath water immediately turned gray, then brown, years of accumulated filth lifting away to reveal skin that was porcelain pale beneath the dirt. Theron knelt beside the tub, his hands gentle as he worked shampoo through the matted tangles of her hair. She sat perfectly still, barely breathing, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're safe now, he murmured as he rinsed the soap away. I know you don't believe me yet, but you will. I promise you, Astrid, no one will ever hurt you again. She turned those violet eyes on him, and for the first time, he saw tears. Why? The single word carried a universe of pain. Why do you care? No one cares about gutter rats. I care. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere primal. And you're not a gutter rat. You're mine, his wolf supplied.
Ours. Pack. Daughter.
He couldn't say that.
Not yet.
Not until he knew for sure. But God, every instinct he had was screaming that this child was more than just some random orphan. That the universe hadn't just dropped her in his path by coincidence. You're important, he finished. To me. So you stay. Understood. She studied him for a long moment, water dripping from her newly revealed copper hair. Hair that caught the light exactly the way Celeste's had. Okay, she finally whispered. I'll stay. What secrets is this child hiding? And why does the High Alpha's wolf recognize her as something more than a stranger? Drop a comment and let me know what you think is really going on. I'll be reading as the story unfolds. Chapter 2, Violet Truths. Theron woke for the 5th time that night, his wolf clawing at his insides with desperate urgency.
Check. Now. Ours. Protect.
She's fine, he muttered to the darkness of his chambers, scrubbing a hand over his face. She's 3 doors down.
Guarded.
Safe. His wolf didn't care about logic. It only cared that the child was too far away, that she should be closer, that every second she was out of sight was a second something terrible could happen. With a curse that would have made his advisors clutch their pearls, Theron threw off the silk sheets and padded barefoot into the hallway. The guards outside Astrid's door straightened immediately, but had the good sense not to comment on their High Alpha prowling the corridors at 3 in the morning wearing nothing but sleep pants. This was the 6th time he'd checked on her since bringing her to the palace yesterday. 6 times in 24 hours. Jasper had started giving him looks, the kind that suggested an intervention was imminent. But Theron couldn't help it. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those scars. I heard that tiny broken voice, saying, "Everyone hurts me." He eased the door open silently. Moonlight spilled across an enormous bed where a figure so small she barely made a dent in the mattress was curled into the tightest ball possible. Even in sleep, Astrid tried to take up no space. I tried to be invisible. His chest ached. She was clean now, her copper hair gleaming in the silver light. The palace physician, Dr. Mira, had examined her yesterday and delivered a report that made Theron want to tear the world apart with his bare hands. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, multiple healed fractures, ribs, wrist, collarbone, burns in various stages of scarring, signs of prolonged physical abuse, and worst of all, indicators that she'd been living rough for years, not months.
Years.
A 6-year-old child had been surviving on the streets, alone, for most of her conscious life. The question that haunted him: why? Street children weren't uncommon in the lower districts, despite his best efforts to fund orphanages and social programs. But something about Astrid's situation felt wrong. Orchestrated. Like someone had specifically wanted her lost, forgotten, erased. And that scent beneath the fear and filth, that undercurrent that made his wolf recognize her as packed despite having no bond, that was impossible to explain. Unless...
No.
He couldn't let himself hope. Couldn't let himself believe the impossible. The tests would tell him the truth. Dr. Mira had taken blood samples, hair samples, and saliva. She'd promised results within 3 days. 3 days to confirm whether his heart was about to break all over again, or whether the universe had given him back something he'd thought was lost forever. A small sound pulled him from his spiraling thoughts. Astrid's eyes had opened, those devastating violet eyes that looked black in the moonlight. She blinked at him, disoriented, then her small body tensed. "I'm sorry," she whispered immediately, her voice cracking with sleep and terror. "I didn't mean to wake you. I was quiet. I promise I was quiet. Hey. He moved closer, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "You didn't do anything wrong. I was already awake. Just checking on you." Again? The single word held no accusation, just observation. Of course she'd noticed. She'd probably been counting his visits, cataloging them, trying to figure out what they meant and when the other shoe would drop. "Again," he confirmed, settling carefully on the edge of her bed. "Does it bother you?" She shook her head, copper hair spreading across the pillow.
No.
I'm not used to people checking. Used to people caring if I'm alive or dead." "Breathe," he reminded himself. "Don't shift. Don't let the rage take over." "Well, I care. Very much." He kept his voice gentle, even though his wolf was snarling. "Did you have a nightmare?" "I don't remember." She pulled the blankets up to her chin. A barrier, something to hide behind. "I never remember. I just woke up scared, and don't know why." "That's okay. You don't have to remember. You just have to know you're safe now." Those violet eyes studied him with unnerving intensity. "You said that yesterday. And the day before. In the market." "I know. But when will you stop saying it?" Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "When will you realize I'm not worth the trouble and send me away?" His heart cracked. "Never. You're not going anywhere, Astrid. Everyone says that at first." She looked away, staring at the moonlit window. "Then they see what I really am. Broken, useless, cursed, and they send me back to the streets. Or worse." What could be worse than the streets? Her silence was enough. There were things worse than homelessness. Things a 6-year-old child shouldn't know about but clearly did. Theron made a decision. Scoot over. Her eyes went wide. "What?" "Make room. If you're having nightmares and I can't sleep anyway, we might as well be comfortable while we're both awake." "But you're the High Alpha. You can't just." "I can do whatever I want. That's the perk of being in charge." He waited until she hesitantly moved over, then stretched out on top of the covers beside her, careful to leave space between them.
"See?
Comfortable." "This is weird," she said, but he heard the wonder in her voice. The cautious, fragile hope. Probably. But a lot of things about the last 2 days have been weird, so we might as well embrace it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, You smell like pine trees and thunderstorms. His wolf preened at the observation. Is that good or bad?
Good.
She hesitated.
Safe.
You smell safe. Something in his chest, already cracked from years of grief, splintered further. You smell like copper and wildflowers, he offered back. Like spring after rain. Really? She sounded doubtful. The other kids at the shelter said I smelled like death and desperation. The other kids were wrong. He turned his head to look at her. And cruel. You smell like hope to me, Astrid. Like possibility. She absorbed this, her small face scrunched in thought. Then, so quietly, he almost missed it. You smell like my dreams. He went very still. Your dreams. The good ones. The ones where someone comes and saves me. Where I'm not alone anymore. She tucked her hands under her cheek, childlike and vulnerable. In the dreams, there's always a man with eyes like storms who says I'm his. That I'm wanted. That I'm. Her voice broke. That I'm loved. Oh, goddess. What else do you dream? He asked carefully, barely breathing. A woman with violet eyes like mine. She sings to me in a language I don't understand, but it makes me feel warm. Safe. Like I used to belong somewhere before everything went wrong. A tear slipped down her cheek. She calls me Stellina, little star, and she tells me that my papa's looking for me, that he never stopped looking, that he'll find me eventually. The room spun. Stellina. That was Celeste's pet name for their theoretical future daughter. She'd been learning the old tongue before she died, fascinated by the ancient wolf dialects. Stellina meant little star, a term of endearment she'd planned to use if they ever had children. Astrid. His voice came out rough, barely controlled. This woman in your dreams. What else can you tell me about her? She has copper hair. Like mine but shinier. Cleaner. Astrid wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. And she's beautiful. So beautiful it hurts to look at her. She wears a dress made of moonlight and she smells like jasmine and starlight. Celeste had worn jasmine perfume. It had been her signature scent. She tells me stories, Astrid continued, lost in memory. About wolves who can talk to the moon. About alpha kings who protect their people. About true mates and bond marks and pack magic. She looked at him. Are those real things? Or just dream things? They're real. Theron's hands were shaking. He hid them under the covers before she could notice. All of it is real. Then why don't I have a pack? Why don't I have anyone? Because someone stole you. Because someone took you from me before I even knew you existed. Because someone wanted us broken and separated and destroyed. But he couldn't say that. Not yet. Not until he had proof. Sometimes, he said carefully, the people who are supposed to protect us fail. Sometimes bad things happen that separate families. But that doesn't mean you weren't wanted, Astrid. It just means something went very, very wrong. She turned to face him fully, and in the moonlight, she looked so much like Celeste it physically hurt. Do you think my papa is still looking for me? If he knows you exist, Theron said with absolute conviction, then he never stopped looking. Not for a single day. How do you know? Because any father who lost his daughter would tear the world apart to find her. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of copper hair from her face. Would move mountains. Would burn kingdoms. Would never, ever give up hope. She leaned into his touch like a flower towards sunlight, starved for affection. I wish he'd hurry up. I'm tired of being alone. You're not alone anymore. I promise you that. But you're not my papa. She said it matter-of-factly, not accusatory. Just stating what she thought was an obvious truth. Maybe I am, his wolf whispered. Maybe that's why we knew. Why are we recognized? Why can't we let her go? No, he agreed, because he couldn't explain without sounding insane. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you. Astrid yawned, the late hour finally catching up with her. Promise. I promise. Even when I have nightmares? Especially then. Even when I'm difficult? You're 6. You're supposed to be difficult sometimes. Even when everyone tells you I'm cursed and you should send me away? His jaw tightened.
Especially then.
Anyone who calls you cursed will answer to me. Personally. She smiled, small and tentative but real. The first genuine smile he'd seen from her.
Okay.
I believe you. Good. He settled back against the pillows.
Now sleep.
Tomorrow we're going to start working on putting some meat on those bones and teaching you that beds are for sleeping in, not dying in. What's the difference? Sleep is peaceful. What you've been doing is more like survival mode. I don't know how to do anything else, she admitted. Then I'll teach you. One day at a time. She was quiet for so long he thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, Theron? Thank you. For not being like everyone else. His throat closed. Sleep, little star. I've got to watch tonight. This time when her eyes drifted closed, she stayed asleep. Her breathing evened out, her small body finally relaxing into the safety of silk sheets and soft pillows, and an alpha who'd die before letting anyone hurt her again. Theron lay awake beside her, his mind racing. Stellina. Dreams of Celeste. Violet eyes. Copper hair. The exact right age. That scent that called to his wolf like coming home. It should be impossible. Celeste had died 7 years ago. The body had never been recovered, but there had been so much blood. Her traveling party had been slaughtered. His brother, Ragnar, had barely escaped with his life and had brought back her belongings, her cloak, her rings, her journal. They'd held a funeral. Theron had nearly gone feral with grief. But what if? What if Ragnar had lied? What if Celeste hadn't died that day? What if she'd been pregnant? The timeline would fit. Celeste had disappeared 7 years ago. Astrid was 6, maybe 7. If Celeste had been taken instead of killed, if someone had held her captive long enough for a pregnancy to come to term. His wolf snarled at the images that conjured. Celeste, his beautiful mate, imprisoned.
Tortured.
Forced to give birth alone. And then what? Had she died in childbirth? Has someone killed her after? And Astrid, his possible daughter, thrown away like garbage. Left to die in the streets. Who would do this? The answer came immediately, wrapped in a ribbon of bitter truth. Someone who wanted the throne. Theron had no heir.
His mate was dead.
The council had been pressuring him for years to remarry, to produce children, to secure the line of succession. If he died without an heir, the throne would pass to the next male in line. His brother, Ragnar.
No.
Surely not. Ragnar had been his closest companion, his most trusted advisor, the one who'd stood by him through the darkest days after Celeste's death, who'd supported him, comforted him, encouraged him to move forward, and who'd conveniently brought news of Celeste's death without a body to prove it, who'd pushed hard for Theron to remarry, to move on, to forget, who stood to inherit everything if Theron remained childless. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Beside him, Astrid murmured in her sleep, her small hand reaching out unconsciously. Theron caught it gently, and she immediately settled, her fingers curling around his. Even in sleep, she sought his touch, sought his protection, recognized him as safe in a way she didn't recognize anyone else. Because somewhere deep in her genetic memory, in the wolf she hadn't yet manifested, she knew him. Daughter, his wolf whispered with absolute certainty.
Ours. Pack. Blood.
Home. 3 days, he whispered to the darkness. 3 days until the tests come back. And then, little star, if I'm right, if you're truly mine, then someone is going to pay for every tear you've cried, every nightmare you've suffered. Every moment you spend alone and afraid. He looked down at her peaceful, sleeping face, so small and trusting. And if Ragnar took your mother from me, he continued softly, deadly, if he stole you and threw you away like you were nothing, then I'm going to show him what happens when you threaten an alpha's family. Outside, clouds drifted across the moon, and somewhere in the palace, a wolf howled. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow will bring the truth. Tonight, he had his possible daughter safe in his arms. And that was enough. Is Astrid really Theron's daughter? And if she is, what happened to Celeste? Share your theories below. The truth is darker than you think. Chapter 3. Blood Doesn't Lie. The council chamber felt like a tomb. Theron sat at the head of the obsidian table, every muscle in his body coiled tight as a spring. Around him, 12 of the Northern Reach's most powerful wolves shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their eyes darting between their High Alpha and the door where Astrid sat in the anteroom, guarded and oblivious to the storm brewing in her name. It had been 3 days since he'd brought her to the palace. 3 days of watching her slowly unfold like a flower finding sunlight. 3 days of midnight conversations and careful smiles and moments that made his heart ache with hope he couldn't quite allow himself to feel. 3 days of waiting for Dr. Mira to confirm what his wolf already knew with bone-deep certainty. "This is unprecedented," Lord Garrett announced, his jowls quivering with indignation. The old wolf had never liked change, had never liked anything that disrupted his comfortable view of how the world should work. A street child, living in the royal wing, dining at the High Alpha's private table. "Your Majesty, the rumors." "I don't care about rumors." Theron's voice was flat, controlled. "Dangerous." "The people are talking," Lady Isadora interjected smoothly. She was one of the few council members who'd been genuinely fond of Celeste, one of the few whose concern felt real rather than politically motivated. "They say grief has finally broken you, that you see the child as a replacement for the queen." "The people," Theron said with deadly calm, "can think whatever they like. It doesn't change reality." "And what reality is that?" Councillor Darius leaned forward, his scarred face unreadable. He was a warrior, one of the few on the council Theron actually respected. "Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you've lost your mind over a child you found in a gutter 3 days ago." Before Theron could respond, the chamber doors opened. Dr. Mira entered, her expression carefully neutral, a sealed envelope clutched in her hands. The room fell silent. Theron's heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. This was it. The moment that would either confirm his hopes or shatter them completely. "Your Majesty." Dr. Mira bowed, then straightened. "I have the results you requested." And his voice came out rougher than intended. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the assembled council. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately."
No.
Theron stood, his wolf pushing forward. "Whatever you have to say it now. In front of witnesses." Dr. Myra's throat worked as she swallowed. Then she opened the envelope with steady hands and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "The genetic tests are conclusive, Your Majesty." Her voice was professionally neutral, but he saw something flicker in her eyes. "Pity? Sympathy? There is no biological connection between you and the child. Astrid is not your daughter." The words hit like a physical blow.
No.
That was wrong. It had to be wrong. His wolf knew her, recognized her. The scent, the eyes, the way she responded to his presence. Everything about her screamed pack, blood, family. "You're certain?" The words came out strangled. "I ran the tests 3 times, Your Majesty. The results are identical." Dr. Myra's expression softened. "I'm sorry. I know you were hoping for a different answer." Around the table, the council members exchanged glances. Some looked relieved. Others looked vindicated. Lord Garrett actually had the audacity to smile. "Well then," the old wolf said, lacing his fingers together. "That settles it. The child should be removed to an appropriate facility. One of the Omega orphanages in the city. They're well-funded, perfectly adequate for."
No.
Theron's voice cracked like a whip. "Your Majesty, be reasonable." "I said no." His eyes flashed wolf gold, power rolling off him in waves that made every wolf in the room bare their throats in automatic submission. "She stays." "For how long?" Lady Isadora asked gently. "Your Majesty, I understand you've grown attached, but keeping the child here when she's not your blood, it's not appropriate. It raises questions. Creates complications." "I don't care." "The court is already talking," Councillor Darius said quietly. "They're saying you're unfit, that you've let grief cloud your judgment. If you're not careful, You'll give your enemies ammunition to challenge your rule. Jasper, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke up. He's right, Theron. I've been hearing whispers. There are wolves who think you've gone soft, who sees this as weakness. Let them try. Theron bared his teeth. Anyone who wants to challenge me for leadership is welcome to step forward. Silence. As expected. No one was stupid enough to actually fight him. Not yet, anyway. But the seeds of doubt had been planted. He could see it in their eyes, hear it in their careful words. They thought he was losing his grip. Though grief had finally driven him mad. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was crazy for feeling this bone-deep certainty that Astrid was his despite what the test said. But then he thought of her small hand in his. The way she called him safe. The dreams she described of Celeste, using words and details a street child should know. The way his wolf recognized her with such absolute conviction. Something was wrong with those tests. Something was. If I may, Your Majesty. Dr. Myra's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. There is one anomaly in the results that I feel obligated to mention. Theron's head snapped up. What kind of anomaly? The child's blood work shows markers I've never seen before. Genetic signatures that don't match any known pack lineage in our records. She pulled out another sheet, this one covered in scientific notation that meant nothing to Theron. It's possible she's from a distant territory, or from a bloodline that's not in our database. But there's also something else. Speak plainly, Doctor. Her wolf hasn't manifested yet, which is normal for her age. But the markers suggest that when it does manifest, she'll be extraordinarily powerful. Possibly Omega class, but with unusual characteristics. Dr. Myra's expression was troubled. Your Majesty, I've seen markers like this only once before, in historical texts about moon-blessed children. The room went deadly quiet.
Moon-blessed.
The old legends spoke of children born under blood moons, touched by the goddess herself.
Rare.
Powerful. Coveted by those who understood what they represented. When was she born? Theron demanded. What's her exact birth date? She doesn't know, Dr. Mira admitted. I asked. She has no memory of celebrations, no knowledge of her age beyond estimation. She thinks she's 6, possibly 7, but she's not certain. 7 years ago, there was a blood moon. Theron remembered because Celeste had insisted they watch it together from the palace balcony. She'd been fascinated by the old legends, had spent hours researching moon-blessed children and their supposed powers. She'd been glowing that night, more beautiful than usual. Happy in a way he couldn't quite define. Had she known she was pregnant? Had she been trying to tell him something? I want new tests, he said abruptly. Different samples. Use a different laboratory. Dr. Myra's eyes widened. Your Majesty, I assure you my methods are... I'm not questioning your competence. I'm questioning the chain of custody. Who else had access to those samples? Only my assistant and, she paused, realizing dawning. Lady Morgana volunteered to help with the processing. She said she wanted to be useful, to support you during this difficult time. Of course. Lady Morgana, who'd been circling him like a vulture for the past 2 years. Who wanted to be queen. Who had everything to lose if Theron suddenly discovered he had a legitimate heir. Jasper. Theron's voice was deadly calm. Find me someone from the Eastern Province. Someone with no connection to this court. Someone who can run tests that can't be tampered with. You think the samples were switched? His beta's eyes went wide. I think I don't trust anyone right now except my own instincts. And my instincts are screaming that something is very, very wrong. Lord Garrett huffed. This is paranoia, Your Majesty. You're seeing conspiracies where there are none, simply because you can't accept. The door to the anteroom burst open. Astrid stood there, her small face pale, her violet eyes huge with fear. The guard who was supposed to be watching her was unconscious on the floor behind her. Papa. The word escaped her in a desperate whisper. The entire council froze. Theron's world narrowed to that single word, that single moment. She'd never called him that before. Had carefully avoided any familial terms, as if afraid to presume. But now, terrified and small and shaking, Instinct had overridden caution. Astrid. He was moving before conscious thought, crossing the room to kneel in front of her. What's wrong? What happened? The lady with the ice smell. Her voice trembled. She came to me, said terrible things, said I was cursed, said you'd throw me away once you realized what I was, said she'd make sure I ended up back in the gutter where I belonged. Rage, white-hot and consuming, flooded through him. What lady? The pretty one with yellow hair. She smelled wrong.
Cold.
Angry. Astrid grabbed his shirt with both hands. She said my mother was weak, that she died screaming, that I'd die the same way if I didn't disappear. Morgana. It had to be Morgana. Theron stood slowly, lifting Astrid with him. She wrapped around him like a vine, burying her face in his neck. And as she did, her fear scent changed, shifted into something that made his wolf surge forward with violent recognition. It was Celeste's scent. Exactly. The specific notes his mate had carried when she was truly terrified. He'd smelled it only twice in their years together. Once during a rogue attack. Once in the bloodied cloak Ragnar had brought back. This fear scent. Astrid's fear scent. Celeste's fear scent. Jasper. His voice was barely human. Find Lady Morgana. Bring her to me.
Now.
Your Majesty. Now. Jasper fled. The council members looked at each other nervously, suddenly aware that they were in the presence of an alpha on the edge of losing control. The tests were wrong, Theron said quietly, addressing the room while holding his daughter, because she was his daughter. Tests be damned. Or they were tampered with. Either way, I'm done pretending to care about protocol or politics or anyone's opinion. He looked around the table, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. This child is under my protection. She stays in this palace. She will be treated with respect due to royalty. And anyone who threatens her, insults her, or tries to remove her will answer to me personally. Are we clear? Your Majesty, Lady Isadora said carefully. If the tests were tampered with, if there's a conspiracy, then I'll root it out and destroy everyone involved. His arms tightened around Astrid. But that's my problem to solve. Your job is to accept my decision and support it publicly. Unless you'd like to challenge me for leadership, more silence, more bared throats. I thought not. He turned to leave, then paused. Dr. Mira, you'll take new samples today. Hair, blood, saliva. Store them personally. Let no one else touch them. Have them sent to Dr. Rashid in the Eastern Province for independent analysis. Yes, Your Majesty. And Counselor Darius, I want you to investigate Ragnar's movements over the past 7 years. Quietly. Every property he owns, every trip he's taken, every financial transaction. The warrior's eyebrows rose. Your brother, Your Majesty? My brother, Theron confirmed coldly. Because someone took my mate from me 7 years ago. Someone kept her alive long enough to bear a child. Someone threw that child away like garbage. And someone has been working very hard to make sure I never discovered the truth. Understanding dawned on several faces. Horror on others. If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, Lord Garrett started. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts and following evidence. Theron headed for the door, Astrid still clinging to him. This meeting is adjourned. Get to work. He left chaos in his wake, but he didn't care. All that mattered was the small body in his arms, the terrified child who'd called him Papa in a moment of pure instinct. In his private chambers, he sat on the bed with Astrid in his lap, rubbing soothing circles on her back while she shook. She scared me, Astrid whispered. The Ice Lady. She looked at me like I was a bug she wanted to crush. She'll never touch you again. I promise. She knew things. About Mama. About how she died. Astrid pulled back to look at him with those heartbreaking violet eyes. How did she know? Unless she was involved, Theron finished grimly. Which means she's working with whoever took your mother. You believe me now? Hope and fear warred in her expression. Is she real? That the dreams aren't just dreams. I believe you. He cupped her small face gently. I believe that somehow, impossibly, you're Celeste's daughter, which makes you mine. The tests were wrong or tampered with, but I know, my wolf knows that you're ours. Papa. She said it again, testing the word. Then, stronger. Papa. His throat closed. Yes, little star. Papa. She threw her arms around his neck and burst into tears. Not sad tears, but relieved ones. The tears of a child who'd finally found home after years of being lost. I knew, she sobbed. I knew you'd find me. Mama said you would. She said you'd never stop looking. That you'd know me when you saw me. She was right. He held her tighter. She was always right. A knock interrupted them. Jasper entered, his expression grim. We have a problem. Just one. Theron's voice was dry. Lady Morgana is gone. Fled the palace within minutes of your summons. And, Jasper hesitated. Your brother is also missing. His chambers are empty, his personal effects removed. It's like he was packed and ready to run. The final piece clicked into place. Morgana and Ragnar, working together. A conspiracy to keep Theron childless and broken while Ragnar positioned himself to inherit the throne. And Celeste, his beautiful, fierce mate, caught in the middle of their ambitions. They know we're onto them. Theron's voice was deadly calm. They're running. What do you want me to do? Sound the alarm. Seal the borders. Put out warrants for their arrest. He looked down at Astrid, who was listening with wide, intelligent eyes. Charges: treason, conspiracy, murder, kidnapping, and attempted murder of the heir apparent. Heir apparent. Jasper's eyes went to Astrid. But the tests were falsified. New tests will prove it. But even if they don't, I'm claiming her formally as my daughter. Let the council challenge it if they dare. Jasper studied them for a long moment, the broken alpha and the tiny street child who'd somehow begun to heal him. Then he smiled, genuine and warm. Welcome to the family, Princess Astrid. Astrid blinked. Princess. Princess, Theron confirmed. My daughter. My heir. Mine. Even though the tests. Blood doesn't lie, he interrupted. But people do. And I trust what my wolf knows over what any test says. You're mine, Astrid. Now and always. She was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, does this mean I have to learn to be proper and royal and boring? Despite everything, Theron laughed. Eventually. But first we're going to find the people who hurt your mother. Who hurt you. And we're going to make them answer for every single crime. Will you kill them? It was a child's question, asked with a child's blunt honesty. No judgment, just curiosity. Do you want me to? She considered this seriously. Mama wouldn't want you to become like them. To let anger make you cruel. Her small hand touched his face. She'd want you to be the good man she fell in love with. The one who saves people instead of destroying them. The wisdom of a 6-year-old, speaking with her dead mother's words. It should have been impossible. But then again, everything about Astrid was impossible. Then I'll try to be that man, he promised. For her. For you. Good. She yawned hugely, the emotional exhaustion of the day finally catching up. Can I sleep here? Your bed is bigger. And safer. You can sleep wherever you want, little star. She was asleep in minutes, curled against his chest like she belonged there. Like she'd always belonged there. And Theron sat in the growing darkness, his daughter in his arms, and planned his next move. Ragnar and Morgana were running, but they couldn't run forever. He'd find them. Make them answer for what they'd done. But first he needed proof. Needed the truth about what had happened to Celeste 7 years ago. Needed to know how his mate had died, and whether she'd known, in those final moments, that their daughter would survive. I'm sorry, he whispered to Celeste's memory, to the ghost that seemed to hover in every shadow. I'm sorry I didn't find her sooner. That she suffered because I failed to see the truth. But he'd found her now. And that had to count for something. Morgana and Ragnar are running. But from what? And what really happened to Celeste 7 years ago? Drop your theories below. The next chapter brings answers you won't see coming. Chapter 4. The Truth in Ashes. The message arrived at dawn, delivered by a ragged wolf who collapsed at the palace gates before anyone could question him. Theron was already awake, had been awake most of the night, his mind churning through possibilities and plans while Astrid slept peacefully against his side. When the urgent knock came, he carefully extracted himself from her grip and threw on clothes, his wolf already on high alert. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. Jasper met him in the corridor, his face grim. "We have a problem." "Another one?" Theron's voice was dry, but his heart was racing. "The messenger at the gates. He's one of Ragnar's personal guards. Or was. He's been beaten badly, barely alive. But he managed to say one thing before he passed out."
"What?"
"The Thornwood Estate."
He kept repeating it.
"Thornwood Estate. She's at Thornwood Estate." Jasper's eyes were dark with understanding. "That's Ragnar's private property in the Northern Territory. The one near where Celeste supposedly died." Theron's hands clenched into fists. "How far?" 3 hours by car. 2, if we push it. "Get a team ready. Full tactical gear. We leave in 10 minutes. "Theron, this could be a trap. If Ragnar knows we're onto him." "I don't care." His voice dropped to something barely human. "If there's even a chance that the estate holds answers about what happened to Celeste, about what they did to Astrid, then I'm going. With or without backup. You know I'm coming with you." Jasper's tone left no room for argument. "But what about the princess?" Theron looked back toward his chambers, where Astrid slept. Every instinct screamed at him not to leave her, not to let her out of his sight for even a moment. But she was safe here. The palace was locked down, guards tripled, every entrance watched. And if the answers he needed were at Thornwood, triple the guard in her room. No one gets in except Dr. Mira and Helena. And I mean no one. His eyes flashed gold. "If anyone tries to reach her while I'm gone, they're to be detained immediately." "Understood." 10 minutes later, Theron stood at Astrid's bedside, watching her sleep. She looked so small in his massive bed, so fragile. The bruises were fading now, replaced by the healthy glow of a child who was finally being fed properly. Cared for.
Loved.
He couldn't bear to wake her. Couldn't stand to see the fear in her eyes when he told her he was leaving. Instead, he pressed a kiss to her copper hair and whispered, "I'll be back before you wake up, little star. I promise. Papa's just going to find some answers."
"About your mama."
"About what happened." She stirred slightly, her hand reaching out in sleep. He caught it gently, and she settled immediately, a small smile crossing her face. "Safe," she murmured, still dreaming. "Papa keeps me safe." His heart cracked. "Always," he promised. "No matter what." Then he forced himself to leave before he could change his mind. The Thornwood Estate rose from the northern forest like a tombstone, all gray stone and dark windows. Theron felt his wolf surge forward the moment they came in sight of it, recognition and rage twining together in his gut. This place. His wolf knew this place. Had been here before, though Theron himself had no memory of it. "Something's wrong," Jasper muttered as they approached. "No guards. No movement. It's too quiet." He was right. The estate should have been defended, especially if Ragnar was using it as a hideout. But the gates stood open, and not a single wolf patrolled the grounds. Theron's tactical team fanned out, weapons ready, as they entered the main house. The door was unlocked. Inside, furniture lay overturned, papers scattered across expensive rugs. Signs of a hasty departure. "They were here," one of the guards reported. "Recently. There are still warm coals in the fireplace." "Split up," Theron ordered. "Search every room. I want to know what they were hiding." He took the stairs 2 at a time, following an instinct he couldn't name. The second floor was a maze of corridors and closed doors, but one at the far end called to him. Draw him like a magnet. The door was locked. He broke it open with one kick. The room beyond made his blood run cold. It had been a bedroom once. Elegant, furnished with expensive pieces. But iron bars covered the windows, and heavy chains were bolted to the wall. The mattress was stained with old blood. Scratch marks gouged the wooden floor as if someone had clawed at them desperately. And everywhere, covering the walls, written in what looked like charcoal or ash, were words. Theron. Stellina. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Find her. Please find her. She has your eyes. His vision blurred. His wolf howled in anguish as the truth crashed over him like a tidal wave. Celeste had been here, had been held prisoner in this room, had written these desperate messages, probably knowing she was dying, trying to leave some evidence that might survive. Your Majesty. Jasper's voice was tight with horror. He stood in the doorway, his face pale. There's more. In the basement. Theron followed numbly, his mind still reeling from the messages on the wall. The basement stairs led down into darkness, but someone had left lanterns burning, as if they'd been expecting visitors. The lower level had been converted into a medical facility. Crude but functional. Examination table. Surgical equipment. Rows of bottles and vials. And in the corner, a small cot with restraints. Child-sized restraints. Goddess above. Jasper breathed. They kept her here. Keep them both here. Theron couldn't speak.
Couldn't breathe.
The evidence was overwhelming, damning. This was where Celeste had been imprisoned. Where she'd been held during her pregnancy. Where she'd given birth, alone and terrified. And afterward, where had Astrid been kept? How long had she lived in this basement before they'd thrown her away? A file folder sat on the examination table, as if deliberately left behind. Theron picked it up with shaking hands. Inside were medical records. Detailed notes in a physician's handwriting. Patient, Celeste Silvercrest status. Captive pregnancy, 7 months condition. Deteriorating. He flipped through pages, his horror growing with each entry. They'd monitored Celeste's pregnancy clinically, coldly. Noted every complication. Every attempt she'd made to escape. Every punishment was delivered when she fought back. The final entry was dated 7 years ago, almost to the day. Labor induced prematurely due to the patient's declining health. Cesarean section performed. Single female infant delivered. The patient expired during surgery. Cause of death: hemorrhaging, complicated by previous injuries and malnutrition. Infant females appear healthy despite premature birth. Subject A-17. Subject A-17. They'd given his daughter a designation. A number. Like she was a lab experiment instead of a living child. The next page detailed what happened to Subject A-17. Sold to traffickers. Passed through multiple hands. A paper trail of his daughter's suffering, documented with clinical precision by monsters. Why? The word tore out of him. Why keep records? Why document everything? Insurance, Jasper said quietly. He was reading over Theron's shoulder, his expression murderous. They kept records to blackmail each other, to ensure loyalty through mutually assured destruction. But they left it behind. Because they knew you'd find it eventually. This is a confession. Jasper's jaw tightened. They're taunting you. Showing you exactly what they did and daring you to catch them. A sound from upstairs made them both freeze. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Theron was moving before conscious thought, taking the stairs 3 at a time. He emerged into the main hall to find a figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the morning light. Ragnar. His brother looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, his clothes disheveled. But he was smiling. That same easy, charming smile that had fooled Theron for so many years. Hello, brother, Ragnar said conversationally. I see you found my little museum of memories. What do you think? Did I do a good job preserving the evidence? Rage, pure and consuming, flooded through Theron. His wolf surged forward, demanding blood, demanding justice. He shifted partially, his body growing, bones cracking as his wolf rose to the surface. In seconds, he was across the room, his hand wrapped around Ragnar's throat, slamming him against the wall. Why? The word came out as a growl. Why take her? Why torture her? Why throw away my daughter like she was garbage? Ragnar laughed, even as he struggled for air. Because you had everything. The throne, the respect, the perfect mate. While I had nothing. So you killed her? Imprisoned her? Made her suffer? I made you suffer. Ragnar's eyes glittered with malice. Celeste was just the tool. Breaking you was the goal. Theron's grip tightened. It would be so easy. One squeeze. One twist. And Ragnar would never hurt anyone again. But Astrid's words echoed in his mind. Mama wouldn't want you to become like them. With a roar of frustration, he released Ragnar, letting him collapse to the floor gasping. You're going to stand trial, Theron said, his voice shaking with suppressed violence. You're going to face every charge, every crime, and you're going to spend the rest of your miserable life in a silver cell, thinking about what you did. You think you've won? Ragnar wheezed, clutching his throat. You think finding your bastard daughter. Does anything change? She's not a bastard. She's my legitimate heir. And she's safe. Which is more than I can say for you. Safe. Ragnar's laugh turned into a cough. You left her in the palace. Surrounded by enemies. Theron's blood ran cold. What did you do? Not me. Ragnar's smile was poison. Morgana. She's quite resourceful. And very, very angry. Jasper. Theron was already running for the door. Get everyone back to the palace. Now. Behind him, Ragnar's laughter followed. Too late, brother. Too late. The drive back to the palace took an eternity. Theron pushed the vehicle to its limits, his phone pressed to his ear as he tried desperately to reach the palace guards. No answer. Just static. Come on, he muttered, trying Helena next. Then Dr. Mira. Then the head of security. Nothing. Complete radio silence. Something's blocking the signals, Jasper said grimly from the passenger seat. Some kind of jammer. How long until we arrive? 20 minutes. 20 minutes. An eternity when every second mattered. When his daughter was in danger, and he was too far away to protect her. Hold on, little star, he thought desperately. Papa's coming.
Just hold on.
They skidded into the palace courtyard to find chaos. Smoke poured from the eastern wing. Guards lay unconscious, or worse, scattered across the grounds. The main doors hung open, blasted off their hinges. Theron was running before the vehicle fully stopped, his wolf taking over, driving him faster. Through the destroyed entrance. Up the stairs. Toward his chambers where Astrid should have been safe, protected, guarded. The door to his room was open. Inside, furniture was overturned. His bed, where he'd left Astrid sleeping peacefully, was empty except for a single piece of paper pinned to the pillow with a dagger. His hands shook as he picked it up. The old cathedral. Come alone, or she dies screaming. You have 1 hour.
No.
The word came out broken.
No.
Theron. Jasper grabbed his shoulder. We'll get her back. We'll. She was supposed to be safe. The roar that tore out of him was barely human. I left her here because she was supposed to be safe. I know. But we don't have time for this. The message says 1 hour. Theron's mind raced. The old cathedral. That was 30 minutes away. Deep in the forest. Isolated. The perfect place for an ambush. A trap. Obviously a trap. He didn't care. Get every available guard, he ordered, his voice deadly calm now. The kind of calm that preceded violence. Surround the cathedral. No one gets out. But they stay back until I give the signal. I'm going in alone. That's exactly what she wants. I know. And I don't care. Theron's eyes blazed gold. That's my daughter in there. My child. And I will tear Morgana apart with my bare hands before I let her hurt Astrid again. He shifted then, fully this time, letting his wolf take over completely. In this form, he was faster, stronger, more dangerous than any weapon. And he had a daughter to save. The cathedral loomed ahead through the trees, its spire reaching toward the sky like an accusation. Theron shifted back to human form as he approached, not wanting to give Morgana any excuse to harm Astrid. The massive wooden door stood open. Inside, Candles burned despite the morning light, casting dancing shadows across stone walls and broken pews. And in the center of it all, Morgana stood on the altar, holding Astrid. His daughter was conscious but terrified, a silver blade pressed to her throat. Tears streamed down her small face, but she wasn't making a sound.
Brave.
Even now, she was so brave. Let her go. Theron's voice echoed through the empty space. This is between us, Morgana. She's just a child. She's not just a child. Morgana's beautiful face twisted with rage. She's the reason everything fell apart. If she died like she was supposed to, you would have married me. I would have been queen. But no, this little rat had to survive. Had to ruin everything. Please. Astrid's voice was tiny. Please don't hurt me. I didn't mean to ruin anything. Shut up. Morgana's grip tightened, making Astrid whimper.
You don't get to speak.
You don't get to exist. You're a mistake. An accident. A failure that should have been erased years ago. Let her go, Theron repeated, taking a step forward. And we can talk. Work something out. Stay back. The blade pressed harder against Astrid's throat, drawing a bead of blood. One more step, and I open her up. He froze. What do you want? I want you to suffer. Morgana's smile was venomous. The way I've suffered. Watching you pine for a dead woman. Watching you refuse to move on. Watching you throw away everything. Your duty, your throne, your future for a ghost. So you helped Ragnar kill her. I helped him break her. There's a difference. Morgana tilted her head. Do you want to know what she said at the end? Your precious Celeste? When she knew she was dying, every muscle in Theron's body tensed. Tell me. She begged us to spare the baby. Offered herself in exchange. Promised she'd stop fighting if we just let her daughter live. Morgana's laugh was cruel. So we agreed. Let her believe we'd keep the child safe. She died thinking she'd saved her precious Stellina. But you didn't keep your promise. Of course not. We sold the brat the day after Celeste's body went cold. Watched her scream for her mama while the traffickers dragged her away. It was satisfying.
Rage. Grief.
Horror. They all crashed through Theron at once, threatening to drown him. But he couldn't lose control. Not with Astrid's life hanging in the balance. Let her go, he said one final time. Take me instead. Kill me if that's what you want. Just let my daughter go. No. Astrid's voice cracked. Papa, no. It's all right, little star. He met her violet eyes, trying to convey everything he couldn't say. Everything's going to be all right. How touching. Morgana's grip shifted on the blade. But I have a better idea. I'm going to kill her right in front of you. Let you watch the light leave her eyes. And then I'm going to kill you. And Ragnar will take the throne, and I'll be his queen, and everything will work out exactly as it should have 7 years ago. Just one problem with that plan, Theron said softly. What? You hurt my daughter. His eyes flashed gold, power rolling off him in waves. And I will never forgive that. He moved. Faster than I thought. Faster than Morgana could react. His wolf surged forward, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. Morgana screamed and thrust the blade toward Astrid's throat. But Astrid was already falling, dropped by Morgana as she tried to defend herself. The child hit the stone floor hard, but she was alive, unharmed. Theron's claws found Morgana's wrist, crushing bones. The blade clattered away. She shifted, trying to match his wolf, but she was weaker. Slower. No match for a high alpha's rage. They crashed through pews and shattered stone, a whirlwind of fangs and claws and fury. Morgana fought dirty, going for eyes and throat, but Theron was beyond pain, beyond mercy. He thought of Celeste, dying alone and afraid. Thought of Astrid, sold like property, and left to suffer for 6 years. Thought of every tear, every nightmare, every moment of fear they'd endured because of this woman. And he showed her what happened when you threatened a wolf's family. When it was over, when Morgana lay broken and defeated on the cathedral floor, Theron shifted back to human form. He was covered in blood. Hers, not his, and breathing hard. Please, Morgana wheezed. Please, Mercy. He looked down at her with cold, dead eyes. You get the mercy you showed my mate. The mercy you showed my daughter. He turned away. Which is to say, none at all. But I won't kill you. That would be too easy. You'll stand trial, face justice, and spend the rest of your life in a cell, thinking about how close you came to winning. Behind him, Jasper and the guards flooded in, taking Morgana into custody. But Theron had eyes only for the small figure huddled against the altar. Astrid. She looked up at him with those violet eyes, Celeste's eyes, and something in her face broke. She scrambled to her feet and ran, throwing herself into his arms with such force it nearly knocked him over. Papa. You came. You came. Always, little star. He held her tight, feeling her shake against him. I'll always come for you. Always. She said terrible things.
About Mama.
About how she died. I know. I heard. Is it true? Did Mama really die saving me? Theron's throat closed. He pulled back enough to look at her face, to brush the tears from her cheeks. Your Mama loved you more than life itself. Everything she did, every choice she made, was to keep you safe, to give you a chance to survive. I don't remember her. Astrid's voice broke. I have dreams, but I don't remember her. It's not fair. I know, sweetheart, but I remember her. And I'll tell you everything. Every story. Every memory. I'll make sure you know exactly who she was and how much she loved you. Promise. I promise. He stood, lifting her with him. Now, let's go home. We both need rest. And then we have a lot of healing to do. She rested her head against his shoulder, her small body finally relaxing. Papa. Yes. I'm glad you're not dead. Despite everything, he smiled. Me too, little star. Me too. The villains are captured, but healing from trauma takes more than justice. What happens next will test Theron and Astrid in ways they never expected. Share your thoughts below as this family begins to rebuild. Chapter 5. Little Star Rising. 3 months had changed everything and nothing at all. The portrait hung in the throne room now, commissioned from the kingdom's finest artist, working from Theron's detailed descriptions and the few surviving sketches Celeste had left behind. She gazed down from the wall in oils and gold leaf, her violet eyes warm with life, her copper hair catching invisible light, one hand resting protectively over her stomach as if she'd known, even then, about the daughter she carried. Theron stood before it now, as he did most mornings before court, speaking silently to the woman he'd lost and miraculously found again through their child. She has your courage, he told the portrait, your stubbornness, your capacity for forgiveness that I still don't understand.
She's extraordinary, Celeste.
Just like you said she'd be. Behind him, the throne room doors opened and small footsteps echoed across marble floors. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. His wolf recognized her presence instantly, settling with the contentment that only came when she was near. You're talking to Mama again, Astrid said, coming to stand beside him. She was wearing a dress of deep emerald today, her choice, after weeks of refusing anything that wasn't simple and plain. Her copper hair had been brushed until it shone, woven with small silver beads that caught the light. She looked like a princess. His princess. Is that okay? He asked. Of course. I'll talk to her too. Astrid tilted her head, studying the portrait with an intensity that reminded him painfully of Celeste. Do you think she can hear us? Wherever she is? I think if anyone could find a way to keep watching over the people they loved, it would be her mama. Dr. Mira says I have her eyes. Astrid touched her own face wonderingly. She says when I'm older, I'll look just like her. You already do. Every day, more and more. They stood in comfortable silence, father and daughter, until Jasper cleared his throat from the doorway. Your Majesty. Princess. The council is assembled. Theron felt Astrid tense beside him. She'd been dreading this day for weeks, ever since they'd scheduled the formal recognition ceremony. The day she would be officially acknowledged before the full court as Princess Astrid Celeste Silvercrest, heir to the throne of the Northern Reaches. The day she would have to stand in front of hundreds of watching wolves and accept the weight of her birthright. "I can't do this," she whispered, her hand finding his. "Papa, I can't. There are too many people. What if I mess up? What if I forget the words? What if?" "Hey." He knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. "Look at me, little star." She did, those violet eyes swimming with anxiety. "You don't have to do this today. We can postpone. We can wait until you're ready." "But everyone's already here. The nobles came from all over the kingdom. If we cancel, then we cancel. You are more important than ceremony, than tradition, than anyone's expectations." He cupped her small face gently. "I will never force you to do something that terrifies you. Never." She bit her lip, thinking. Behind them, he could hear the murmur of assembled courtiers, the rustle of expensive clothing, the anticipation in the air. "What if?" Astrid started, then stopped. Started again. "What if you come with me?
Not just to the ceremony. I mean,
What if you stand beside me? The whole time? That's not traditional." "I don't care about tradition." Her voice rose, then dropped back to a whisper. "I just need you there.
please, Papa."
I can be brave if you're there." Something in his chest, already cracked and healing poorly over the past months, split wide open. "Then I'll be there. Every step. Every word. We'll do this together. Promise." "I promise." He stood, offering his hand. "Ready." She took a deep breath, one of the techniques Dr. Mira had taught her for managing anxiety, and nodded. "Ready." They entered the throne room together. The assembled court was massive. Nobles from every territory, representatives from allied pacts, merchants and warriors and scholars all gathered to witness this historic moment. The return of the lost princess. The daughter who'd survived impossible odds. Whispers erupted as Theron walked in with Astrid's hand firmly in his, as he led her not to the small throne that had been prepared for her, but to his own seat of power. "Your Majesty," Lord Garrett sputtered from his place in the front row. "This is highly irregular. The ceremony requires." "The ceremony," Theron said calmly, his voice carrying through the hall, "requires my daughter to take an oath. It says nothing about where I have to stand while she does it. And I choose to stand with her." He could see the council members exchanging glances and could practically hear their thoughts. Unprecedented. Improper. What will people think?
He didn't care.
Let them think about what they want. Lady Isadora, bless her, smiled. "I think it's lovely, Your Majesty. A father supporting his daughter. There's no higher tradition than that." Others nodded slowly, seeing the wisdom in her words. Lord Garrett still looked disapproving, but he subsided. The High Priestess stepped forward, ancient and powerful, her white robes pristine. She looked at Theron and Astrid with knowing eyes that had seen countless coronations, countless ceremonies. "Shall we begin?" Her voice was surprisingly gentle. Theron felt Astrid's hand tighten in his. He squeezed back, then did something that would probably be talked about for generations. He knelt beside the throne rather than sitting in it, bringing himself to Astrid's level, keeping their hands joined. "Together," he murmured for her ears only. "Just like we practiced." The High Priestess's lips quivered in what might have been approval. She began the ancient words, speaking in the old tongue that few still understood but everyone recognized. The language of their ancestors. Of power and promises that bound deeper than blood. When it was Astrid's turn to speak, her voice started out small and trembling. But Theron spoke the words with her, lending her his strength, his power, his unshakable belief in her. "I, Astrid Celeste Silvercrest." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "Do solemnly swear to honor the pack, to protect the weak, to serve with wisdom and courage, to uphold the laws of our people, to be worthy of the trust placed in me." The coronet was brought forward, delicate silver woven with moonstones and amethysts. The High Priestess lifted it, but before she could place it on Astrid's head, the child spoke. "Wait." Her voice rang clear through the hall. Please wait. Confused silence. The High Priestess paused, coronet hovering in midair. Astrid turned to Theron, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this without saying something first. What is it, little star? 3 months ago, I was nobody. I was a street rat who didn't even know her own birthday, who thought she'd die alone and forgotten in some gutter. Her voice cracked but held. And then you found me. You looked at me and saw something worth saving, worth protecting, worth loving. The court was utterly silent. Even Lord Garrett looked moved. You could have left me there, Astrid continued. You could have walked away. But you didn't. You brought me home. You made me your daughter. Not because you had to. Not because tests or blood or tradition said you should. But because your heart told you I was yours. Theron's vision blurred. So before I become a princess, before I accept this crown and these responsibilities, I want everyone to know. She looked out at the assembled court, her small face fierce with determination. I want everyone to know that the only reason I'm standing here is because my papa never gave up on me. Because he chose love over doubt. Because he's the best father in the entire world. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make him proud. She turned back to him. I love you, Papa. Thank you for finding me. The throne room erupted. Not with whispers or gossip, but with genuine emotion. Wolves wiping their eyes. Hardened warriors clearing their throats. Even Lady Isadora was openly crying. Theron pulled Astrid into his arms, no longer caring about protocol or tradition or what anyone thought. You already make me proud, he whispered fiercely. Every single day, little star. You're the bravest person I know. Even braver than you? Especially braver than me. He pulled back, wiping her tears with his thumbs. Now let's finish this, Your mama's watching, and I think she'd want to see you crowned. Astrid nodded, squaring her small shoulders. She faced the High Priestess again, and this time when the coronet was placed on her head, she didn't flinch. Princess Astrid Celeste Silvercrest, the High Priestess proclaimed, her voice ringing with power. Heir to the throne of the Northern Reaches. Daughter of High Alpha Theron Silvercrest and Queen Celeste Silvercrest. Moon-blessed child of prophecy. We recognize you. We honor you. We pledge our loyalty to you. The court echoed the words, hundreds of voices speaking as one. And in that moment, Astrid's eyes flashed, not with her own wolf, which hadn't manifested yet, but with something else. Something ancient and powerful that made the very air shimmer. Her Omega power beginning to wake. The High Priestess saw it and smiled. The moon recognizes her own. As it was written, so shall it be. The celebration lasted long into the night, but Theron and Astrid slipped away after the formal dinner, both exhausted by the day's emotions and events. They ended up in Theron's private garden. Their garden now, really, since Astrid spent as much time there as he did. The moon was full overhead, bathing everything in silver light. Do you think Mama saw? Astrid asked quietly. She was still wearing her coronet, refusing to take it off. The ceremony? I'm certain she did. Theron pointed up at the brightest star in the sky. See that one? That's her. Always watching. Always loving you. How do you know which star is hers? Because it's the one that shines brightest. Just like she did when she was alive. Astrid was quiet for a moment then. I wish I could remember her. Really remember her. Not just dreams. I want real memories. I know, sweetheart. But the dreams are real in their own way. Your mama reached out to you the only way she could, even after death. That's powerful magic. Rare. Dr. Mira says it's because we're moon-blessed. That the bond between mother and daughter is stronger when the moon's involved. Dr. Mira is probably right. Theron settled onto a garden bench, and Astrid immediately climbed into his lap, her favorite spot. Your mama was special, Astrid. And so are you. When your power fully manifests. Will it hurt?
No.
It might be overwhelming at first, but it won't hurt. And I'll be there through all of it. You won't go through it alone. She relaxed against his chest, trusting him completely. That trust still amazed him sometimes. After everything she'd been through, all the betrayal and pain and loss, she'd chosen to trust him, to love him, to call him Papa. "Can I tell you something?" she asked softly. "Always. When Lady Morgana took me, when she had that knife against my throat, I wasn't as scared as I should have been." His arms tightened around her protectively. "Why not?" "Because I knew you'd come. I knew you'd save me." She tilted her head back to look at him. "Is that stupid? To have that much faith in someone?" "No, little star. That's not stupid. That's what family means. Knowing someone will always come for you, no matter what." Did you have that? Growing up? The question hit harder than she probably intended. Theron thought of Ragnar, the brother he'd loved and trusted, who'd betrayed him in the worst possible way. "I thought I did," he said honestly. "I thought I could trust my brother. But I was wrong. He taught me that blood doesn't always mean family. Sometimes the people we choose are more loyal than the ones we're born with. Like me and you. We chose each other. Exactly like us." He kissed the top of her head. "You're more my family than Ragnar ever was." What's going to happen to him? To Uncle Ragnar and Lady Morgana? The trial had concluded 2 weeks ago. Both had been found guilty on all charges. The sentencing was scheduled for next month, once all the evidence had been properly catalogued and presented. "They'll spend the rest of their lives in the silver mines," Theron said, "working to repay their debt to society. It's a harsh sentence, but it's what they deserve." Astrid's voice was matter-of-fact. "They hurt Mama. They hurt me. They tried to destroy our family. They should suffer." There was no heat in her words, no rage. Just a child's simple understanding of justice. "Your mama would be proud of you," Theron said softly, "for being strong, for surviving, for choosing forgiveness when you could have chosen hate." "I don't forgive them. No.
No.
But I don't hate them either." She thought about it carefully. I don't want them in my life anymore." "Is that okay?" "That's more than okay. That's healthy." He adjusted her coronet, which was slipping. "You don't owe them anything, Astrid. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. Not even your thoughts. They're in the past now. Your focus should be on the future. A future where I'm a princess." She said it like she still couldn't quite believe it. "A future where you're my daughter. The princess part is just a bonus." She giggled, the sound like bells. "I like being your daughter better anyway." "Good. Because I like being your papa." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere in the palace, life continued. Guards changing shifts. Servants cleaning up after the celebration. Courtiers gossiping about the ceremony and the young princess who'd stolen everyone's hearts with her honest words. But here, in this quiet garden, it was just the two of them. Father and daughter. Two wounded souls who'd found each other against impossible odds. "Papa?" Astrid's voice was drowsy now, sleep creeping in. Will you tell me a story about Mama? A real one, not a dream." "Which story would you like to hear?" "The one about how you met." "You've never told me that one." So Theron told her. About a young alpha attending a diplomatic function, bored out of his mind, until a copper-haired woman with violet eyes had walked in and changed his entire world with a single smile. About how Celeste had been fearless, approaching him directly, when everyone else kept a respectful distance. About how she'd challenged him, intrigued him, made him laugh for the first time in years. About how he'd known, within 5 minutes of meeting her, that she was his mate, his future, his everything. "She sounds perfect," Astrid murmured half asleep. She wasn't perfect. She was stubborn and occasionally reckless, and she had terrible taste in music. Theron smiled at the memories. "But she was perfect for me. And she would have loved you so much, little star. Would have been so proud of the brave, kind, incredible person you're becoming. I wish." Astrid's voice was barely a whisper now. "I wish she was here." "Me too, sweetheart. Every day. But we have each other." "We have each other," he agreed. "And that's not nothing. That's everything. She fell asleep in his arms, as she often did, her coronet slightly askew and her small hand fisted in his shirt. Theron sat there long after she drifted off, holding his daughter under the stars, thinking about the impossible journey that had brought them here. 3 months ago, he'd been a broken king, hollowed out by grief, going through the motions of ruling without really living. Now he has a daughter, a purpose, a reason to wake up every morning and face the world. Celeste had given him that gift, even in death, had held on long enough to bring their daughter into the world, had loved Astrid fiercely enough to keep her alive through force of will alone. Thank you, he thought, gazing up at the brightest star. Thank you for her, for fighting so hard, for never giving up. I promise I'll take care of her, my love. I'll give her everything you would have given her. I'll make sure she knows how much you loved her, how much you sacrificed for her. I'll be the father you knew I could be. The star seemed to shine brighter for just a moment, and Theron chose to believe that was Celeste's way of telling him she heard, that she approved, that she was finally at peace, knowing their daughter was safe and loved. Come on, little star, he murmured, standing carefully so as not to wake her. Let's get you to bed. Tomorrow's a new day, and your papa has plans to teach you how to be the best princess this kingdom has ever seen. He carried her inside, through marble halls and past bowing servants, up the grand staircase to the suite of rooms that had been prepared for her. A proper princess's chambers, decorated in purples and silvers, with a bed large enough for 3 people and a balcony that overlooked the entire kingdom. But when he tried to lay her down in that enormous bed, Astrid's eyes flickered open and she tightened her grip on him. Don't leave, she whispered. Please don't leave me alone. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. I'll stay right here until you fall asleep again. And if you wake up scared, I'll be just down the hall. All you have to do is call for me. Can I? She hesitated, then said in a rush. Can I sleep in your room? Just for tonight? I know I'm too old. You're exactly the right age to need your papa when you're feeling uncertain. He shifted her in his arms. Come on. My bed is more comfortable anyway. Her smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. They settled into his chambers, into the massive bed where he'd held her that first night 3 months ago, where she'd told him about her dreams and called him safe. Papa? Her voice was small in the darkness. Yes, little star? I'm glad the universe put me in that market square. I'm glad you found me. His throat closed. Me too, Astrid. Me too. Even though it was hard, even though you thought I was gone forever, especially because of that. The best things in life are worth fighting for, worth suffering for, worth never giving up on. He pulled her close. You are worth all of it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I love you. 3 words. Simple words. But they carried the weight of everything. All the fear, all the hope, all the healing that had happened over these past 3 months. I love you too, little star. More than all the stars in the sky. More than this kingdom. More than my own life. That's a lot of love. You deserve a lot of love. You deserve everything good this world has to offer. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it. Promise. Promise. She snuggled closer, content. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, her small body relaxing completely in the safety of his arms. Theron lay awake a while longer, thinking about the future, about the challenges that would come as Astrid grew older, about her powers manifesting, about teaching her to rule, about protecting her from those who would try to use her for their own gains. But for now, for tonight, they had peace. They had each other. They had this quiet moment of perfect contentment. And that was enough. In the morning, there would be lessons and council meetings and the never-ending work of ruling a kingdom. There would be moments of fear and doubt. There would be nightmares and bad days and times when the weight of the past threatened to drag them both under. But they would face it together. Father and daughter. Alpha and moon-blessed child. 2 souls who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light hand in hand. Sleep well, little star, Theron whispered into the darkness. Tomorrow we start building the life your mama dreamed of for us. The life we both deserve. Outside, the moon shone down on the palace, bathing everything in silver light. And somewhere in the stars, a soul that had loved them both smiled. The High Alpha had found his lost star, and she had finally found her way home.
The end.
Thank you for joining Theron and Astrid on their journey from darkness to light, from lost to love, from broken to whole. This father and daughter proved that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who choose to love us, fight for us, and never give up on us. If this story touched your heart, please share it so others can experience the healing power of unconditional love. Until the next tale, may you always find your way home.